Okay, it says we're recording.
Okay, well, I'll call to order the special board meeting of the Park Ridge Library Board of Trustees on March 19th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Before I ask Josh to take roll, given the unusual nature of the meeting, I think it might be good for Heidi to give us the explanation why we can meet this way first before we call roll. Heidi, would you like to give that background for us? Thank you.
Absolutely. So this is in regards to Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07 that relates to the Open Meetings Act. This executive order, dated March 16th, 2020, suspends the Open Meeting Act requirements relating to in-person attendance by members of a public body. Specifically, the requirement in 5 ILCS 120/2.01 that members of a public body must be physically present is suspended. And 2, the conditions in 5 ILCS 120-7 limiting when remote participation is permitted are suspended. As such, it's the consensus of the library board, as I understand it, to forgo the remote meeting attendance policy of the library board in light of this executive order.
Okay, if anybody has anything to say about that, if not, I'll ask Josh to call the roll.
Burkham.
Yes, here.
Rapasand is here. I'm just gonna go by your nods here, so you don't have to go through the whole unmuting. Rapasand, Hanba, Samheil, Lamb, Kennedy,
Here.
Dubrovic, Reardon.
Yes.
Time here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Josh. So with the first item on the agenda is actually public comment. So I would ask if anybody wants to make public comment. Heidi, you've got the background how they can do it, so I'll hand it back to you.
Absolutely. And if I could beg your patience for 1 minute, I am getting information from Pat that he's not been able to log in.
Who's Cat?
Pat.
Pat.
Okay, sorry.
Pat Lamb.
Okay.
So I can do one of two things. I can try to help him get in and you guys can wait for me. Or we can just do our best with what we have.
Can someone, is he having a problem with Heidi, do you know if he's trying to dial in, or is he having a problem with the computer?
So I do believe he's the one who's called in. Pat, if that's you calling in, oh yeah, I just got a text from him from that number. Okay, so Pat, I believe you've called in from the general number on the public notice, and you should call in from the number in the email that Zoom sent you as a panelist, and that specific number will log you in as a panelist with your name and all of that information. So yeah, you're this, he's the phone call-in listener. It's Pat.
Well, because we have 27 people on this call, which is great.
Yes, well, and except for Pat, the rest of the attendees are staff. Oh, and Ann Lundy. There we have Ann Lundy and staff who are attendees. So Pat, I see you're there. I think what you need to do is you need to hang up, and then you need to pull up that email that Zoom would have sent you on Tuesday evening, probably I think it was about 5 o'clock, with the phone number for you to call as a panelist. And I believe in that email, it's a direct line. I don't think you even have to type in a code. Let's see.
Okay.
Heidi, as he's looking for that email, my email came from you, not from Zoom.
Oh, it came from me? Okay,
Right.
he's gonna try it.
Okay. So while it's actually, I want to take a step back because it's public comment on non-agenda items that we're taking right now. So if there is none, can you see any, Heidi, of anybody who wants to speak?
Well, let me go through my little spiel here since it's,
Mhm.
okay, since we don't have, okay. Well, you know what I could do? I could just allow Pat to talk.
Yeah, maybe if he's
Let me
still on.
see. Pat,
Yes.
we got you.
Hello? No way.
Okay, you're in.
Did you? As I said, you know, the average trustee electronic idiot. It's me. So, go ahead,
Okay.
and then I can read my own comments later.
Okay, great. Okay, so no one is calling in for public comment. Everybody is in the portal. So for any of you who would ask to make a public comment on a non-agenda item, if you're in the Zoom app or on the Zoom website, you can click on raise my hand. It may be under the participants list. And if you would like to make a public comment, we'll take everyone in the order in which they raise their hand. So this would be the moment to do that. And I'm assuming as they're mostly staff that as they're staff and that we don't have any public comments. None are popping up.
Okay, so if that's the case, we'll move on. As it's a special meeting, we only have can discuss items that are on the agenda, and there is only one. How I envisage this going, and people can tell me if they think it needs to go another way, is have Heidi introduce the memorandum and the issue. Then from there, we can discuss the issue. And if we start to form a consensus, we'll need to have some sort of motion that we'll need to develop if we think one is needed. And then we can vote on that motion. And then basically that will conclude the meeting at that point because we can't discuss anything else. Does that sound like a plan to everybody? If there's no objection, good? Okay. So Heidi, I'll hand it over to you to introduce the topic and we can go from there.
Okay, thank you. And I tried to make this as concise as possible, but I wanted to be able to provide context for your discussion and info for the viewers at home who may not have read the memo. We posted our packet earlier today. So bear with me, this is going to be about 8 minutes. Firstly, I'd like to thank all of the board members for their support during this difficult time. I know that the staff really appreciate it, and so do I. Thank you. As you know, our staff has been continuing operations as best we can remotely. They continue to connect with our patrons and to foster a sense of community online. The library building might be closed, but the virtual library is open for business. This week, staff have set up Google Chat handles. They've shared important service information via Park Ridge Community Network, social media, and the library's website. They've researched other remote services to enhance our current virtual library of e-resources. They've evaluated tools and best practices for remote programming. They're continuing as best they can with their typical responsibilities, such as material selection, program planning for the summer and fall, including the reading club, and completing training where applicable. They're really getting creative, and we really appreciate their great work. I want to take this opportunity to solicit suggestions from our board and community via email. Please email them to us at librarydirector@prpl.org. We have created telework opportunities for all staff so that they will telework as many of their typical hours as possible, prioritizing impactful community service. Some staff, such as facilities and finance team members, as well as our IT contractor with CVI, will be required to perform some work on site. Those who do not have this capability have been identified and have another communication method and work plan in place. I'm so proud of how our staff have stepped up so admirably in the last week, and we hope to continue working together to support our community during this time. Of course, we also understand there are some situations limiting some of our team from doing so as much as they would like, such as technological limitations. I know the team will make every effort possible working within their current circumstances to support their teammates and our community. I want to take this opportunity to give special thanks to the managers who have made it their priority to keep us all connected and inspired. I also want to take this opportunity for the staff who are listening now and anyone who will watch this recording later. I just want to reiterate, we must continue to maintain our top priority, which is the health of our team and the health of those they care for. So we have guidance in place for our staff so that no one overdoes it with telework. I would like to share with you a recommendation from the American Library Association. Their executive board is encouraging libraries to ensure that all library workers receive fully paid leave, including health coverage, while libraries are closed. 77% of 158 libraries who responded to the Rails Northern Illinois Library System survey reported standard compensation for time not worked to all employees. In our local geographic area, I understand that Niles, Glenview, Eisenhower, Franklin Park, and Bensonville have not yet reported. Those reporting all staff will receive standard compensation for time not worked include Morton Grove, Des Plaines, Lincolnwood, Skokie, Mount Prospect, Prospect Heights, Arlington Heights, Northbrook, and Elk Grove. To my knowledge, no other local public library within that geographic area have reported that they will not compensate all staff for all hours, regardless of telework options. In my memo, I listed some additional considerations, and I would like to just highlight two of them at this time. One of them is being prepared to reopen. So when our doors open again, there will be an overwhelming amount of work to make up for the closure period. We will expect our staff to provide excellent customer service, reassurance to the community, and traditional library services at 150%. So we need to make sure that we have them ready to hit the ground running. Also, in terms of what I'll refer to as the big picture, the library is not losing revenue in this situation as many of the local businesses in Park Ridge are. What we are doing is protecting our entire community. Staff is not benefiting from the quarantine other than hopefully staying healthy. I really appreciate how they've continued to do their best to complete the work of the library in service of our community. Really, in this situation, our community is seeing the most benefit. I recommend the board compensate all staff for hours they would have worked if the library had been open through April 18th, or such time that the library reopens to the public, whichever happens first. We're working as much as possible remotely. We're doing a good job with what we have, and we're working on enhancements to do our very best for Park Ridge. Another goal is that we will retain our great staff, be ready to hit the ground running when we reopen. It's hard to say at this time whether or not this may cost taxpayers more or less money in the long run, but I think it is clear that potential unemployment, recruiting, training costs would likely apply. We need to be prepared to reopen with the impactful services our community needs. I've received a few questions from trustees that I will briefly answer now, and then I will turn it right back over to Gareth. One question I received was what the estimated cost would be. And what we did is we looked at the most previous payroll, and we split out the costs into part-time staff who work less than 20 hours a week who are not enrolled in the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund pension. That's 32 of our 73 employees, and that previous payroll was a little over $12,000. That's for a 2-week period. The next group are our part-time staff who are enrolled in IMRF. That's 16 employees, and their wages were just under $15,000 for that 2-week period. So that subtotal of part-time staff was $27,000. For full-time staff, which we have 25, that payroll was just under $54,000. Our total payroll expenses are typically $80,000 per pay period, per 2-week pay period. So I'll move on to the next question. And obviously, if I didn't answer the question that the trustee had, they'll raise their hand and Gareth will help them with a follow-up question. I received a question, why did we choose April 18th? So April 18th is the end of a pay period. So we wanted to try to be consistent with our payroll. I felt that this possible, a possible extension and making time for the board to consider a possible extension aligns with our next regular committee meeting scheduled. I thought that that would be best in terms of what the community expects in terms of our meeting. We can have a special board meeting after the committee meeting to approve a change or extension to this. And then lastly, why April 18th? 3 weeks from now to start planning the conversation seemed like an appropriate amount of time. So again, we have in the proposed motion, the suggested motion at the end of the memo, that it would be April 18th or when the library can safely reopen to the public, whichever comes first. The last question that I had received previously was do we have many part-time pension contributing staff who would likely not have enough to do? So I estimate that there are probably 5 where it would probably be a bit out of balance for the manager to come up with a work plan for each of these 5 employees to fill all of their time, when the manager might be investing that time more in the remote services that we're developing. So I think that there will be some opportunities, some occasions where managers need to make the decision, do I spend the time to make sure this person is as busy as possible for all of their hours, or do I need to say, well, really I have limited time and I really want to focus on how to issue library cards remotely. That's just one example. So I hope that answers those questions. That's what I prepared. I'm happy to help in any way possible with any questions you may have. Thank you, Gareth.
No, thank you, Heidi. Thanks for the overview. I think first of all, though, I think we all want to echo the big thank you to everybody, the staff, even the lead up to the shutdown. I know myself, when I bumped into Josh when I went in there, it was exceptionally busy, and the staff were doing a great job in terms of making sure people got materials before the shutdown occurred. The other thing I would say, though, just before I open it up, is that the current policy is that full-time staff is already compensated in terms of an emergency closure. As I read that, I think that covers full-timers, and really the ask here is just to is really around the part-time staff. With that, is there anybody who want to raise their hand or just go off mute and start talking? Hopefully not everybody at once. We'll give it a try. So if anybody has any comments.
Gareth, Pat Lamb here.
Hi, Pat, go ahead.
After I thought, well, I'll just read the comment that I asked basically Heidi to read if I wasn't able to connect, and it's just a few thoughts. And as I said, I'm also in favor of obviously supporting the staff and being paid as it's a unique and hazardous crisis. I would also like to see how we are balancing against the services we are here to provide, as mentioned in Heidi's memo. I'm also in favor of mandating staffing remotely where possible, or having staff come to work in a sequestered, clean environment to assist the shut-in world, of which now some of us are part of, where possible. From that perspective, my comment to Heidi was, what steps have or are we being taken to completely sanitize everything now and going forward every 8 hours? Doorknobs, fixtures, copy machines, computer keyboards, etc. And I'm saying this actually in respect to another idea that I know that we have at our current work is, how many staff persons can come into work but remain sequestered from other staff? And do we have a weekly? So then I'm gonna read a little bit of the other ideas that I threw out to Heidi to just ask. Do we have a weekly schedule prepared that Heidi can share with the board as to how many staff persons are able to work remotely, by name and when? How many staff persons can come into work but remain sequestered from other staff? Can Heidi give us a current daily count compared to normal scheduled staffing for perspective to us trustees? I've seen businesses give workers 2/3 pay where they are unable to come in to work for circumstances outside of their control. If after the week's approved, can we move to a 2/3 pay for workers out more than 2 or 3 weeks? And those are just ideas outside, again, keeping in mind that the two responsibilities we have as trustees, and one is, of course, to our taxpayers, but secondly, more important at this time, to the patrons of our wonderful library, and what can we do in this electronic world to keep them busy? Because as we can all appreciate now that I'm sure that other persons have seen the same news items regarding, for example, Oak Park, which is asked for, your self-imposed, sheltered, and distant communications or relations to other persons. Although Oak Park, if everybody has actually have paid attention to the details of the news, they had a senior citizen home where they have something like 20 to 40 known contracted coronavirus. So those are just my thoughts, and those were kind of items which I thought that maybe Heidi can give us by email or whatever some of those answers.
So
Can-
before
can
we,
I- Sorry, go
can
ahead, Gareth.
yeah, I was just going to say that before we go there, I think the key thing is to remind ourselves why we're here tonight. I think kind of the operational issues, if staff are working and Heidi's directing them to work, whether it's remote or in the library based on the safety considerations, I think that's a decision best left to her. I think what we should really discuss is really the policy of for part-timers where they cannot work and whether they should be compensated or not based on their structure. That's really the focus of this discussion. I think while, there's obviously health issues and operational day-to-day issues that Heidi has to deal with, I think those are best left to her. I think we should really need to focus on on part-time folks who cannot work, either because of the technology, because of the safety, if they get sick and they don't have sick time. That's, I think, really what we should focus the conversation on. But Heidi, if you wanted to address any of Pat's comments around that topic.
Well, so
And then, Heidi, one moment, please. You can address some of those issues in an email. And I appreciate, Garrett, you're absolutely correct. You know, that the focus is relative to, in part, what's on the agenda. So I was anticipating that I would not be able to connect. And so I was just, again, extrapolating what's going on in the future beyond 2 weeks, beyond 3 weeks, and the impact to our patrons as well as to our taxpayers. So I'm sorry, Heidi, go ahead.
Oh, not at all. I would like some time to think about that in terms of the best way of reporting. Typically in my monthly report, I would likely report on the highlights of the work that the staff have been doing. And I certainly would want to report on the tremendous work that they are doing from home. So I think that could be a really great option for us. I also feel like their work is really speaking for itself. And if you were to visit the Park Ridge Community Network, our website, our Facebook page, our Instagram, go and we're still working on launching our chat options as well as our phone forwarding options. But I think that their work is really going to speak for itself. And I'm happy to report on that in the monthly report on what we're able to accomplish, what issues we run into. I feel like absolutely I will keep you in the know with how what we're doing affects our services to the community and my management of the resources. So I think that's a very, very good point. Well taken. In terms of sanitizing everything, I would like to share that our current cleaning company has been continuing to come into the library each day, and they have been doing deep cleaning at John's specific direction at specific areas throughout the library. The one thing that I think is the most problematic to us and unique as a public library is the materials and our sanitization of the materials. We have tens of thousands, so many items that are covered in plastic. We just don't know what level of precaution is necessary for those materials to be safe, to be handled by our staff, and then to be redistributed to the community. So I just want everyone to be rest assured that we are doing everything we can to make sure that we're not risking our staff or our public in disseminating some of our materials. In terms of the facility, I really want to praise John Priala, our facility manager, for his leadership of the cleaning crew. And he was very smart and got in there early and got them to agree to an extra hour a day for additional work before there was a run on cleaning services. So as of right now, we're really in good shape in terms of deep cleaning. It's really the materials and handling them that we want to be 100% about. As if I understand correctly, our library system, Rails, is in communication with the Illinois Department of Public Health in developing best practices for public libraries so that, if the books need to sit in the book drop for a week in quarantine, that we all know to do that and that we're not risking our staff needlessly. And then if they do require any additional cleaning, that we have the proper products. That's another thing. These Clorox wipes and alcohol and different things that we may need to clean the materials has been in short supply. So just be rest assured that our highest priority is the safety of our staff and our community. And we are monitoring the situation closely. And as soon as we have a plan in place to be able to do that work, we sure will. I think the
Thank
other
you,
thing,
Heidi.
oh, thank you.
Sorry. Sorry,
That's-
if you had, that's it. Okay. I didn't, sorry, I might have jumped in too soon.
That's okay. I want to make, those are the two that jumped out at me as being the big questions, Pat. If there are other things that you'd like me to speak to now.
I think it would be
No,
best if
no,
we
I
could
think that's
focus on.
good.
I think it would be good though if we can get back to the topic at hand. Those are good reasons about how long this issue might actually go on for. You know, because we can't open the library obviously until we completely have the safety of the patrons and staff first and forefront, and Heidi will help is gathering that data and will collect that information. I think I saw 2 hands raised virtually, and I don't know, unfortunately it doesn't tell me which one came first between Mike and Josh. I don't know if either of you knew, but if one of you wants to go off mute and start who thinks went first, whose hand up went up first. If not, Josh or Mike. Mike's did. All right, Mike, you're
I
up.
think Josh is pointing at me.
Yeah, he was pointing down at the, if he's looking at the grid of folks. So, okay.
Yep. Point at the old guy.
Yeah, for the record, this is Mike Reardon. For those of you who can't see us on here, I have a piece of information and then sort of a philosophy to talk about. I spent a little bit of time talking with Mayor Maloney yesterday because I was curious as to what the city was going to do. Should they have to reduce services or close offices or whatever? And to make a long story short, they have not voted on anything. They are working to try to make sure that city employees do not go without pay. So that's sort of the philosophy they are working toward and have not come to a conclusion yet. So I just wanted to throw that piece of information out there. Sort of to add a little bit of a different perspective here. From one standpoint, I believe this is an exciting time where we can find new ways and novel ways of servicing the community. And I think Heidi and the staff have started to go down that path. I think that when we come out of this, you know, particularly if this goes for a month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever, that we will have a lot more ways of servicing the community, a lot more programs, a lot more ways of delivering programs and all those sorts of things that I know, Heidi, you talked about getting back to business as usual, and I actually think it will be business as usual plus everything we learned how to do. So I think the mission grows bigger through time. My personal opinion is this. My personal opinion is I don't believe that our employees, full-time, part-time, whatever, should miss a paycheck due to circumstances beyond their control. That said, I believe there are probably things that every employee can be tasked with doing. Something as simple as think up new ways of delivering services. You know, let's have a conference call once a week and everybody give me your 20 ideas that you came up with. Or, I don't mean to micromanage. I'm just saying everybody can contribute in some way. And if our expectation as trustees is that we will pay people, I think part of that expectation is, and we expect people to work to the extent that that's possible. Now, everybody has different situations. Heidi pointed out that, you know, manager time is going to be spread thin, and it's not always possible to make sure that everybody is working for every minute. And I understand that. I'm not trying to question that. I'm just saying my expectation would be, let's pay the employees. Let's expect them to work. Let's let the management do their job and make sure everybody is working to the extent that is possible. And at the end of this, or maybe once a month, Heidi will give us a report on all the great things that are happening and all the new ways, the novel ways of delivering services to our employees, or I'm sorry, to our community, that our employees
Did we lose Mike? Okay, it wasn't me that lost the feed. Okay. Okay. Well, I think he was kind of getting to the end. So, oh,
There he is.
Mike, we lost you just as you were getting to the winding up there.
Oh, okay. I don't know where you lost me, but somehow I lost the screen and I was virtually done. If you heard me say that, I think our expectation should be that we pay all the employees and we expect them to work to the extent possible. And then Heidi will give us, on some sort of timely basis, a report of all the great things that are happening. That's where I am.
Yeah, good. We heard that bit. So thank you.
Okay.
Josh, you're next, I think. Josh?
Well said, Mike.
I believe Ms. Rapasand is next.
Okay, it doesn't matter. I think we can go in any order. It doesn't matter to me, but I would say I would agree with everything that Mike stated. I also think it's just the right thing to do. The more and more we're paying attention to the news, more and more, concern there is about local businesses that are struggling with their employees and small businesses and just all the folks that are hurting during this time. And again, this is not something this was not a choice for our employees. This is not a choice for anyone who's in this situation that's not able to go to work. And I do think that we are in a unique situation. I think it's unprecedented. And I think until at least April 18th, which is the deadline this first deadline Heidi has given us, I think it's just the right thing to do to pay all of our folks. I think that knowing that they're dedicated staff, we've seen this. We saw this in the strategic planning first phase, how dedicated our staff are. And I think knowing that will put our mind at ease as they work from home, knowing that they're going to do the best job that they can possibly do, and that they truly care about our library as much as, if not as much as we do. So I do think that it's the right thing to do. I think that, if we can constantly keep our good people and we keep them working, they'll know we care about them and they care about us. And I think we'll see that mutual benefit. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Lauren. So Josh, now I think it's you now, right? And
I'm just done.
can
Yes.
you unraise your hand when you're done?
Yes.
So then I know. Then I can try to follow.
Okay.
Josh.
My hand's down.
All I want to say is that this is the team that got us through the renovation. This is the team that we asked to do 110% and they deliver 150% for us. I want to keep this team and I want them to rest assured that we're going to pay them and keep going with them. And then when we come out the other end, they're going to be there with us. So I'm for also continuing to pay. Heidi has a budget. She has scheduled people and I trust her to do the right thing by the employees and by the taxpayers. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Josh. No one else's hand is raised. Does anybody else want to just go off mute and say something? Oh, Heidi, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't have the raise your hand feature. There were just a few comments that were made in the chat related to the discussion that I want to share for anyone who maybe over the phone, just in case. So Trustee Burkham mentioned, I think this gives the library a great opportunity to find where we can be relevant. And Trustee Reardon responded, absolutely. So great comments. Thank you so much. Want to make sure that anyone who might just be listening has the benefit of those comments too. Thank you.
Okay,
You hear me?
Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
I seem to not have the raise your hand feature right now. In my work right now, my employer, this is just creating, it's havoc. It's crazy. It's nuts. This whole thing is crazy. But we need to look at where the opportunities are. And I think there's a huge, huge, huge opportunity for us, especially as a library, to prove how relevant we are as a social place. We're not just about a book depository. We are that, but we're so much more. And I just think that this, I don't want to take advantage of it per se, but I do think we can take advantage of this in showing that to our public, to our users, that, you know what, yeah, you can get books from Amazon, but you can't have a library. You can't have a community without our library. And I think we need to figure out a way to capitalize on that. Just, that's my 2 cents. That's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Karen. Does anybody else want to make a comment?
Yeah, this is
Dave?
David. So just
Right.
echoing all of the comments that everybody has already said, I think this is the right thing to do. I don't think this is anything that's necessarily earned. These are staff that are already dedicated and focused on delivering services. And even when we've seen visits go down physically, we've still seen circulation go up. So I think this is just another example of how we can see innovative services delivered. And I'm excited to hear, you know, the next report on what's going on and how we're able to take advantage of this, leveraging you know, more recommendations or digital materials for our constituents.
Okay. Thanks. Anyone else? Before I'll ask someone to make a motion. Before I do that, I'm just looking at the suggested motion, and just from a wordsmithing standpoint, you know, would it be clearer to have, after to approve full compensation and benefits, would it be better to have up to full compensation for regularly scheduled hours, so that it's clearer? Because my understanding is from talking with Heidi that part-time staff, it's not like we ask them to work 12 hours one week, 18 hours the next, or 24. They week after week work 20 hours or 12 hours or whatever the number is. So I think it'll be clearer rather than the term full compensation. I just want to make sure that it's clearer that that's an I'm not sure where that noise is coming from, but would anybody object to that if someone could add that to the motion as they make it?
I think that's a good idea, Gareth.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other wordsmithing type things with the motion before I ask someone to make it? Okay. So would someone make the motion with that word in that I asked?
I would mean Pat Lamb here would make a motion to approve the payment of, although I haven't been.
Do you want me to read it?
I haven't
Pat?
written this
Oh,
down. Yeah, why don't you read it down? Why don't you
Okay,
read it first?
So Pat, you want to move that to approve full compensation for regularly scheduled hours and benefits for all library staff until social distancing instructions are lifted, to the extent that the library can safely reopen to the public, or April 18th, 2020, whichever comes first. Does he have a second for that?
I would make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. And Karen would second it. Any discussion on the motion? If not, is there anybody in the public that wants to make, given we have 22 people, does anybody want to make a comment? And Heidi, I can't see that. I'm going to ask you if you see anybody that wants to make a public comment before we vote.
Sure. And again, everyone who is attending through the web page or the application for Zoom, and that they all should have the option of clicking raise my hand, which may be located, may be found under the participants button at the lower part of your screen. So if anyone needs to make a public comment, please click that raise my hand right now. I see no hands.
Okay, thanks, Heidi. So back to the board. Any comments? If not, I'm asking Josh, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Burkham,
You need to go off mute for Karen.
Sorry. Yes.
Ms. Rapisand,
Yes.
Ms. Hanba,
Yes.
Mr. Somheil,
Yes.
Mr. Lamb,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Reardon.
Yes.
Mr. Keim votes yes. We have unanimously agreed to the motion.
Thanks, Josh. Before, given we can't talk about much else, but Heidi, this, I think, just get people's feedback. I think this worked reasonably well for this situation, and I'm assuming the governor's executive order is still in play when it comes to the committee, the COW meeting, we may have to do the same version or the same routine here. But I think it worked reasonably well for the situation. And I think also just fill in the transparency and accountability angle of it too, that we're able to still maintain that despite having it to be electronic. We've done our, I think, our best here to ensure the public access to this. So thank you, Heidi, for organizing it that way.
Thank you.
And we, continue to give you and the staff our best wishes. And without anything further, without any objection, rather, we're adjourned. Thank you at 7:46 p.m. Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Yes, stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.